So alhamdulillah, last week we spoke about the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in more detail and how they had compiled Hadith. And we spoke about the different type of Sahaba at the time in terms of their approach towards Hadith. Now, inshallah, today we're going to try and wrap things up, talk about the second generation, the third generation as well, but the third generation's information is quite well known, and it is something that has reached us today. Now in the second generation, because of and what we mean by second generation is we mean after the first 100 years have passed. Because obviously in the time of Sahaba radiallahu anhu, there are older Sahaba and younger Sahaba. So as time passes, the younger Sahaba become the elder Sahaba. So Anas radiallahu anhu and young Sahaba like Usama radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Umar, we call Sigar Sahaba, the children of the Sahaba. As the elder Sahaba like Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, these Sahaba pass away, the young Sahaba become the elders of the Ummah. They take that position. And then the once young Sahaba become now Kibar of Sahaba, they become the older Sahaba, they are facing the younger generation. So the younger generation is now not Sahaba anymore, they're Tabi'ee, which means the most they have seen is a Sahabi. So to them, the younger Sahaba who are now the older Sahaba like Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, these young men like Imam Abu Hanifa, like Imam Shihabuddin Zuhri, these Imams that we will talk about, those Imams are youth, young. They're learning from the elder Sahaba that they are living amongst. But it flips again. Because once all Sahaba are eradicated, they're gone, they have deceased, then those people who learn from them become the elders Tabi'een, they call Kibar Tabi'een. And the Kibar Tabi'een start teaching those younger than them. So then Tabi'een breaks into two as well, Kibar Tabi'een, Sigar Tabi'een. Some have, like Ibn Hajar has mentioned, Awsat. There are some that come in between the two levels. So it keeps going on like this, so we understand who is learning from who. Because it's not enough for us to say he's Tabi'i. For us to say he's Tabi'i means he met Sahabi, or he saw a Sahabi. It doesn't tell us or inform us to what extent have they engaged with the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So the Kibar Tabi'een are the greatest of Tabi'een. They're the greatest because they have spent the most time with Sahaba amongst all Tabi'een. And then from the Atba'u Tabi'een, we'll get to at some point, the Atba'u Tabi'een, the greatest of them are the eldest as well. Because the eldest of them have spent the most time with the elder Tabi'een. So, you guys are well aware of the fact that in Islam we believe in an important aspect of suhbah. Suhbatul Salihin, it is called. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wa kunu ma'a sadiqeen. O you who believe, fear Allah, wa kunu ma'a sadiqeen, and be with the truthful. So suhbah, companionship in Islam is a very valued thing, very precious. So amongst the scholars of Hadith, there is discussions about mulazamatul mashayikh, mulazamatul shaykh. That to what extent have scholars spent with the other scholars. That showed their value. Like I believe we did indicate towards it, like in the time of Imam Zuhri, who we'll talk about inshallah today. Imam Zuhri has had so many students, thousands of students. But some of his students who narrate from him, those riwayat or those narrations are weak. And then other students, their narrations are very strong. And sometimes it is found that it is the same meaning. They're literally narrating the same message. And one man is narrating and through him it is weak. And through this man it is strong. So this goes back to that understanding of Sharia, that the suhbah, the mulazama. Those students that spend more time with the shaykh are considered to have more tathabbut. They have more, reliance, or they have more trust in the narration of that imam. So we'll see, we will study that. But anyways, khair. In the second century, or which is the first century starting, after Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there is not much of a change at the beginning. At the beginning, because there are Sahaba like Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, and these Sahaba, who are now elderly, and they're teaching them. So the same type of tradition is happening. They're telling people a hadith, the people are learning from them. They're relating, they are narrating, and the people are taking and understanding. But as Islam starts spreading, Islam starts to conquer places that are non-Arabs. And we talked about at the beginning that the Arabs, they had the qualities of memorization. That's what they did. They couldn't read much, and by and large, they relied on their memories. Now, as Islam starts spreading and they start covering places of non-Arabs, those people are relying on writing and reading. So now, that same ability is not existent. Now they're facing an issue because of that. So now they have to kind of relook at the situation. So because of this change, because of these effects or these issues that the Muslim Ummah faced, there must have been a change. There had to be a change. Now it doesn't mean that hadith started becoming weak. Those people we talked about, the munkireen, those people that want to reject hadith, they want to use this point of weakness. Actually, it is a point of strength. Because Sahaba radiallahu anhu, Tabi'een, they're so intelligent that they are fixing situations immediately. So it shows their concern, their ihtimam, their concern about this knowledge. So it is actually a point of praise. Now the same thing happened with Quran. Now those people who are going to object, and they're going to say Quran is what we follow, and we don't follow hadith, because hadith, as time passed, hadith became not preserved. Well, the fact of the matter, same issue occurred in the time of Uthman radiallahu anh. And what happened? It happened also in the time of Umar radiallahu anh. What is the issue? Is that people were coming with different qira'ahs that they learned. One man reads in Salah, Maliki Yawmiddin. Other man reads Maliki Yawmiddin. So that man who does not know Maliki Yawmiddin, he says, you have ruined my Salah. You've read wrong. So this started to become an issue in the time of Khilafah. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, there are some riwayat that mention that all of this sab'atu ahruf. We believe in the sab'atu ahruf, the different qira'at, or different types of recitation. The Prophet ﷺ taught different people. And different people learn different ways of qira'ah, which is learned today as well. So to fix this issue, there's the Mus'haf Uthmani. Mus'haf Uthmani contains all of the qira'ah in one Mus'haf. If you look at the Mus'haf Uthmani, it does not have nuqat, it doesn't have dots and harakat. So the different recitation ways can be noticed from just the lines. Because between the ba, ta and tha, it's still just like this. There's no difference, there's no dot underneath, there's no 2 dots or 3 dots. So the Arabs were so used to this that when they were able to see that page in the Mus'haf, that page of Quran, they're able to read whatever qira'ah they learned. So as long as the qira'ah, we say the qira'ah was able to be applied to the Mus'haf Uthmani, was accepted. This eradicated the issues or controversy that was occurring. So this is something that was happening that everyone agrees, everyone accepts. Even those people who reject hadith, they accept that today. So we say that is also an established fact in the Jam' al-Mushaf or Jam' al-Masahif, that the Ulama all agree on the fact that Quran and Qira'ah was preserved in the Mus'haf Uthmani, and no one has a problem. So Sahaba radiallahu anhum realized that controversy is occurring, and they found solutions to that which everybody can accept. The same thing was happening with Hadith. When Hadith becomes a controversial issue, or it's at a point of weakness or possible weakness and it's facing issues, the scholars of the time find a solution that benefits me and you today. So in that time, as Islam starts spreading, even amongst the Sahaba that are remaining, not much, a handful of Sahaba, even they don't live in one area. Now they are going in jihad, they are now leaders, they are now doing ghazawat, expeditions, and they are traveling extensively. So you can't find all Sahaba in one place. So now Sahaba are everywhere, scholars are everywhere, Islam is spreading so quickly, it becomes an issue. Now people don't know where to take their hadith from. This is where, and aside from the fact, people don't have the ability to memorize the same now. The Arabs had that quality, non-Arabs did not have that quality. So it became difficult for them, so they started to write. The first man amongst in that time, who was the one that commanded or instructed for this to happen, was, which we say he was a great sunnah, it was a great way, it was a great solution of the man, is Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was the Khalifa, and he saw that so many things are being studied. And so many ulama are passing as time is going, he's seeing, the great Tabi'een pass away. So as he is seeing this, he gets worried. And we know that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, radiallahu anh, he is a mujaddid. He is a reviver of the ummah. So he's they call him Umar al-Thani, the great Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So he gets very concerned, and it's narrated that he sent a message to Abu Bakr ibn Hazm. Abu Bakr ibn Hazm was a very great imam, who he also put as an authority. He gave him authority of Kufa at the time, and Kufa, there's called, in the Islamic world, it's called Asimatul Dawla. Asimatul Dawla is the capital city. So the capital city is where everything occurs, or the main source. In the time of Ali radiallahu anh, the capital city turned towards Kufa. So Abu Bakr bin Hazm has authority there, and he's a very respected imam. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he sends a message to him that you need to now gather and collect a hadith. So the words here that are mentioned is that he said, "Unzur ma kana min sunnatin aw hadithi Umar faktubhu." Oh Abu Bakr, whatever sunnah you can find, or a hadith, including that of Umar radiallahu anh, then write this down. So he started to take this as very seriously. The ulama mentioned that what he would do is, he would be documenting all the ahadith that he found. And he would take the ahadith of Makkah, that he took from the scholars there, and then he would go to Medina and he would see those ahadith, which ones are being applied in the people of Medina. Like we know Imam Malik, very well aware of Imam Malik's concept of ta'amul Ahl al-Medina. Imam Malik strongly believes in the way the people of Medina are acting is establishing the way the Sahaba radiallahu anhu or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing something. So Abu Bakr bin Hazm is also doing similar thing. He is taking from the ahadith that he is finding in Makkah, he is looking into Medina, trying to see if there's difference or the people are applying. And when both Makkah and Medina are applying the same thing, it shows a lot of precedence there. Anyhow, so as Umar bin Abdul Aziz gets older, he passes away, and so does Abu Bakr bin Hazm. And it is mentioned from his son that those books all got lost, or those books are not found today. But it's the concept that exists. The concept that he has established in the importance of documenting a hadith. Now, a next point is out of the riwayat that have been mentioned about him commanding Abu Bakr bin Hazm, the scholars have mentioned that he was not the only scholar that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz asked or instructed to collect hadith. He actually instructed many, many scholars. And one of the scholars that were famously instructed to do this was, who is now considered as the first Imam to collect hadith, is Imam Shihabuddin al-Zuhri. I mentioned him, Imam Shihabuddin al-Zuhri is a great Imam of hadith. Imam Shihabuddin al-Zuhri, he is the one who, they have said he's awwal man dawwan al-hadith. He's the first one that actually documented hadith. Now, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he says that there's a difference of opinion between him and it being Imam Sha'bi. Some have said it was Imam Sha'bi, but they say that they were both collecting at the same time, and that's why there was some confusion. But generally the scholars are saying that Imam Zuhri was first. And Imam Sha'bi was also collecting and documenting hadith. Now, there are some other aspects that I wanted to talk about, but I don't think we'll talk about it yet. It'll come, it's a little, it's very important I think, but let's get through what is happening. So now, in this time, we find that from now hadith is being documented, now there is another issue. Who is documenting what? Things are being documented, one word can go missing. What if somebody writes on his own something? In the time of Sahaba, there's not this fear. Or to this fear, this fear, not to that extent. Allah mentioned that in the time of Sahaba, they did not concern themselves so much with saying who is narrating. They did not concern themselves so much with who is narrating, because our belief is that as-Sahaba kulluhum udul. All Sahaba, they will never lie against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is not possible, we don't believe that, so then that security was there. Now as time progressed, now there are people that are coming with their own beliefs, their own methodologies, their own ways of thinking, contrary to the way of Sahaba, and they don't have that same level of iman. So now the scholars are scared, worried. So now the ahadith is being compiled, but there's a fear of fabrication. A fabrication of ahadith. So then, and amongst even, what did happen in the time of Sahaba, like Umar radiallahu anhu one time rejected hadith of a woman. He said that we're not going to take your hadith. We talked about Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he rejected the hadith of Abu Hurairah. Remember? We talked about Aisha radiallahu anha, how she rejected hadith of Abu Hurairah. So amongst Sahaba they're doing this, but they are not rejecting because of the lack of trust in the person. They are rejecting based on istidrak, where they don't believe that necessarily the person's way that they are bringing the hadith is the absolute ruling. So they are more rejecting the application of the hadith, not necessarily the hadith itself. And here now they're rejecting some of the ahadith themselves because they don't believe they're ahadith. Now it's a controversial issue. So then amongst the scholars, like it's mentioned here that there were amongst the kibar tabi'een, we talked about kibar tabi'een like Imam Zuhri, most of them were all very pure men as well. Very trustworthy men as well. So the Sahaba we consider udul, the highest level. The Sahaba we consider udul, which means that by default we believe. Then kibar tabi'een we called thiqat. Generally we consider them extremely reliable. Illa wahidan, except one or two individuals like this. Some have said like Al-Mukhtar Al-Kadhab, or like Al-Harith Al-Awar. There were some that were rejected, but those were well known. Because there are so few, they're well known who is rejected. As time passes, it becomes more and more and more. So you see the fear now is happening. In the time of Kibar Sahaba, nothing. Time of Sigar Sahaba, nothing. Kibar Tabi'in, very, very little. As it goes on, more concern will happen. More fear will happen. More possible chance of fabrication will occur. So, then ulama do another thing. So you find our ulama, rahimahumullah, Allah has given them this ability, because Allah says, "Inna lahu lahafidhun." We will preserve. We will preserve, and this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them that hikmah. So now they started from the fear of losing the information. They feared losing the information, so they said, let's document. Right? They said, we fear the loss of the information, let's document. After the documentation is happening, now they fear that anything can be documented and it cannot be trustworthy still. So then they say, look, let's build sanad. So they build sanad, and the sanad is, you cannot just say, don't just say that you know something. Who did you get it from? And who did he get it from? And who did he get it from? All the way to the Prophet ﷺ, so that if that message corresponds with those people who we trust, we will accept. If that message, it is not correlating, or it is different, or it's very alienated from the understanding that we have learned from our elders, then we will check. So it's a very, very wise system the ulama have done in this ummah, where they are now protecting Islam through something called sanad, asanid. This is why Abdullah bin Mubarak, he says, لولا الإسناد لقال من شاء ما شاء. If there wasn't sanad, anybody say whatever he wants. Now how would you know what is authentic, what is not authentic? People will try, إِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرًا. People will try and convince you through the way, from what they say and the way you understand it. So a man may say something to you, you may say that makes so much sense, and you take it, move forward, it does not benefit you, or it's not correct. Like some of the people used to say, or some groups used to say, that a hadith can be fabricated. If you're doing targheeb or tarheeb, if you're going to encourage a person to do more good deeds, then fabricate. Tell them about rewards that don't exist. Or you want to keep them away from haram, then tell them scary stories or scary things and terrify them so that they stay away. But that was also not permissible. So if the logic does not correspond to our tradition, then we find ourselves going astray even when we assume we are not. So then our ulama rahimahumullah, they had a very strong concept of isnad. So then isnad came, and then there was the concept of tarjih and ta'deel. Tarjih and ta'deel, where they're going into the life of every individual, and looking at the man, seeing how well versed he is with Quran and Sunnah, how good of a memory he has, how much time he has spent with ulama, every sifa, every quality, and then they are going to critique them all and see who is at what category. It's mentioned about Imam Zuhri. He once didn't take a hadith from a man that he saw playing chess, because Imam Zuhri said chess is not allowed, shatranj, not allowed. So he didn't take the hadith from the man. It is mentioned about some salihin, some pious men, that their hadith were weak because they were worried about piety, not about isnad. So there are many, many aspects that our ulama have looked. It's about Ibn Lahi'a. Ibn Lahi'a, it is mentioned that he was كَانَ مُتَثَبِّتًا قَبْلَ احْتِرَاقِ كُتُبِهِ. And there was a time in his life where he had a lot of books of ahadith, or a lot of documented ahadith, which he used to teach. And he used to read from there, so it was safe, secured in everything. And when he would narrate, the people would take it, and it was a very strong hadith, it was written, so there was very little chance of mistake. But then what happened, his books, his house got on fire and his books were burnt. So then Ibn Lahi'a, he started to narrate from what is remaining in his mind. But he was used to the books, so now, not mistakenly, accidentally. He's accidentally making mistakes, because now he's relying on his mind, his books are not available to him anymore. So then the ulama say that when you look in Ibn Lahi'a's life, you'll find that if it is before his books were burnt, then we can say that he is mutathabbit fi riwayah. He is very strong, reliable in that riwayah. But if it was after the burning of his books, then he is weak in that riwayah. Then there are rules of ikhtilat. Ikhtilat of, when an imam was intelligent all his life, and then when he got an old age, something happened. So then we'll have to look in his life, when did he narrate that hadith? So it is a very, very beautiful study. SubhanAllah, it's a beautiful study. And you will look into them, you'll find that Imam, you'll say he narrated to that Imam, and that student, he didn't meet him to the end of his life. At the end of his life, he was sick mentally, so it must be weak. And then they'll look and they say, that Imam, he narrated to this man, and that he taught him at the beginning of his life, so that is strong riwayah. So subhanAllah, it's a very, very powerful nizam that the ulama have established for me and you. Then after this, there are books being documented, or the hadith of sahih and da'if are occurring, which now after they're looking at the sanad according to the criteria of people like Imam Yahya and Mansur and Majishun, all of these Aimma, after they're looking at their criteria, following their criteria, then you have Imam Al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. Then you have Imam Muslim. Then you have Ibn Majah. Then you have Imam At-Tirmidhi. Those who are taking that knowledge and then going through it all and following. What is authentic, what is not authentic. What will we accept, what will we not accept. So the sanad, or that whole, the difference between today and yesterday, I said is that today everybody eats the fruit. They know how tasty the fruit is, so they feel like they planted the tree. But they don't understand that there were ulama there that planted the tree, fed the water, nurtured it, watched it grow, spent their entire life there. They did not even get the fruit. They didn't get to that point. Like these Imams, like Imam Zuhri and them, are not in the time of, they don't have Sahih Bukhari to refer to. They're taking all the knowledge themselves, they're working so hard. Like is mentioned about Jabir radiallahu anh, that he traveled for 1 year. Traveled for 1 year to get one hadith. It's mentioned about many of the Sahaba and many of the scholars of hadith, that how much they used to do just to gain a hadith. They would give their life for it. So there are books like Safhat min Sabr al-Ulama. The scholars have mentioned about the stories of the people in the past, what they have got, what they have done, what they have sacrificed, so that me and you can learn, or me and you can study today, or read today. All of that is connected to their efforts, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them tawfiq to do. So the biggest lesson, now we're going to inshallah start about talking about the Imams. I do want to talk about a few things, hadith, da'if, sahih. This way there's some clarity on the subject. But then I do want to get into the book inshallah, because a lot of people are unclear about what is da'if, what is sahih. And we can talk about those points inshallah to some extent. But what is important out of this part that we've studied now, we're done this segment of how it was being compiled, is to understand that hadith is a very, very blessed and sacred knowledge. And people, me and you read and we use it to argue, or we use it to tell people they're right and wrong, or we use it to, make a bias, right? And we have very little amount of knowledge. It's very important for us to know these things so that we can respect how much our ulama have done. When a person respects the amount that their scholars have done, then it is very easy for them to stay attached. This is the benefit, I'm telling you. The thamara, the benefit, is that the more the people understand how much their ulama have done, the easier it is for them to attach themselves. The less they understand of that, very easy for them to break off. Very easy for them to break off. Very easy for them to say that, we can do our own thing, or we know. That's why you'll find nowadays, even in the Arab world, not even Western world, there are many people that are trying to influence Islam or influence people, but they don't have a connection to scholars. They don't have that connection, but they're trying to be beneficial, or they're trying to speak for Islam, but they don't realize how much harm they are doing at the same time. Because Islam is the whole body, and that body is a tradition. That is the turath ilmi that we have learned from our Sahaba radiallahu anhum and our ulama. And to find a man to learn, like Ibn Muhammad bin Sirin rahimahullah used to say a beautiful thing. He said, all of you should be aware of from who, or be concerned with who he takes his knowledge from. Because your knowledge is your religion. That knowledge that you are gaining is really your religion. So if you gain it from the wrong people, then you are corrupting your own Islam. You're corrupting it. So that's the main thing we should learn, is that the more we strengthen our bond with our ulama, our scholars, our elders of knowledge, then we will be able to strengthen our iman and hold that connection. Sheikh Awama, he was in just like I think last week, he gave a very, very beautiful quote I saw. He said, which my ustad used to say, same thing. He said that العلماء آباؤكم وأجدادكم في العلم. The scholars, your teachers of knowledge, they are your fathers and grandfathers in knowledge. And they are sometimes more valuable than one's own father in an aspect. Because one's own father has raised them, fed them, but those fathers of knowledge have given them the spirit that they live with and that they will have forever. So that spirit of that ruh is being fed by knowledge, and those are only being given by the people of knowledge. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give myself and yourself tawfiq. And next week inshallah we'll talk about some ahadith da'if and sahih.